Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us here on this Friday, and I think it is an absolute wonderful Friday because it's raining. It's one of those days you're going to have to stay in if you're having plans to go out.
Beat Radio.
Oh, that loop will get you every time. Appreciate you being with us here on this Friday. It is going to be a good one. Loaded lineup. Todd Leary is going to join us. Zach Osterman to join us. See if we can get Travis Miller also, and we'll hear from our second segment with Adam Gorney, the national analyst for recruiting for Rivals and Yahoo. As we heard from him yesterday, we'll hear from him once, continue on with that today. Looking forward to that. Hello to everybody. Tyrone down in Jeffersonville, Red Devils country. Man, Red Devils are going to be good in basketball this year. But we've got football coming upon us. Larry, how are you, sir? And everybody listening, no matter how and where you are, our peeps down on the river, 97.7 ESPN, the ref, always the right call in Evansville, up in the region. 12:30 a.m., 104.7 FM, WJOB, the voice of the region. And, of course, the only sports station in Fort Wayne, 1380 The Fan. Keep it tuned here and on all these stations as following us on The Fan. I know the Sports Rush will be up, I believe, on 97.7. You have Brian coming up after ISB. No, that's later on, I think, in the afternoon. So either way, looking forward to a full load today. Mr. Malachi Moreno, making his announcement today of where he will be attending school. I'm a little caught off guard by how early this is. He has a lot of official visits or had scheduled. So is this a Juju Lewis thing where he's going to commit someplace but yet take all of his visits? It's a little something. Bill Evans asking, are spectators allowed at the Hulls Golf Scramble? Of course. Come on out. Especially if you're a Hull sponsor for $100, that'll really may have to find you a badge or something to wear. But looking forward to today. The NCAA is still fighting stupid battles. You know, there's always something that they're doing that just seems idiotic. And now this, in the era of NIL and all of this, the NIL is still fighting and is boycotting Canadian Hockey League players from D1 competition because they had sometimes get like a $600 stipend or something. I'm like, are you kidding me? There are guys that are making upwards of $1 million a year in NCAA athletics now, and this is the kind of crap that the NCAA is worried about. It's every time you turn around, the only thing that they're involved in is something dumb, which I can't believe that there's not a D in the NCAA acronym, so we could say dumb or an S for stupid. But I guess that there's so little for them to do because they've never done anything right that they actually are making up things. So you got that going for them. And how about this? Here's something for you. These the coaching changes that have happened over the last few years. There was over 24 coaching changes after last season. There have been over 83 coaching changes in just the last 3 seasons alone. And in the last 5 seasons, 125 football coaching changes. Now, what do you think the buyouts for 125 coaches would be? Head coaches only. That doesn't even include any other stuff they've had to pay. But by my calculations, which didn't go very far, it has to be well over $1 billion just in payouts. And as an example, I'll take Jimbo Fisher and Tom Allen. You put those guys together, you're already upwards of 100 million right there. Very, very close to 100 million. That's 2 guys. And I know Jimbo takes up a lot of that, but that's just 2 of 125. I'm pretty sure the other 123 can make that up. All of them didn't get big buyouts, I know, but that's a lot of numbers. That's a lot of money given away for people not to coach, not to work. $1 billion. The coaching industry is, the way it's set up is just ridiculously stupid. Is there another business model where the particular business is paying this kind of money in buyouts? I can't imagine. It just, college athletics, the money is so dumb that people are dumb. It seems to be. Larry asking, has IU ever won a recruiting battle with Kent, or do they just have more money and now known as NIL? Is that short of Kentucky? Oh, yeah, I assume that's Kentucky and Malachi Moreno. Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say yes. I know that they recruited Pat Graham. They recruited a lot of guys over the years that ended up sticking with Indiana, but not, I don't know that they've ever, I would say no, that they've never won a recruiting battle of a player from Kentucky over Kentucky. And the fact that Malachi Moreno is not just a player that lives in Kentucky, he literally lives right outside of Lexington, Kentucky. And that is who is expected to earn his services. We've already seen that Indiana also scheduled a visit for another big man, so they're not waiting around. You don't have to worry about that. I think it's Eric Ribe, if it's Ribe or Ribe, how you pronounce his name, but he sets his date for his official visit to Indiana. He's going to be good. This guy is also, he's a 2025 4-star big man. He will be at Indiana between October 4th and the 6th. That is for not a home football game, by the way. So they don't get to roll that out. But the schedule for Ribe, he's 6 official visits coming up. He'll go to Kansas, then UConn, then Kentucky, then North Carolina, then Indiana, then Oregon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the 6 places he's going, blue blood schools. Now, he doesn't seem to have an allegiance towards the home place. He's from Maryland, so he's not visiting Maryland. Maryland has done a good job recruiting lately, so the home part it seems to be out of the picture there. So he's obviously willing to travel to go to school. Now you have to wonder, does Indiana and Mike Whitson have a little heads up because of what they've been doing with the big men, Trace Jackson Davis and Kalel Ware, and soon to be probably Umar Ballo, which now I don't know how much credit do they get for Ballo. He's already a double-double machine, but Ryby's a 7-footer, man. 7 foot, 230 pounds from Potomac, Maryland. Indiana, they'll end up getting a big no matter what. I don't know truly, is it better to get a big out of high school now or one that is a coming off of their freshman year? They've been through college for a year. They know what it's like. A guy like Kalel Ware. And you can get a lot more production out of the guy faster who's had another year of experience, in my opinion. So, yeah, recruiting is just, it's important, don't get me wrong. And some of it for optics reasons. Indiana involved with a lot of guys right now. And Braylon Mullins is not so much optics, but it is because he's a big-time name from the state of Indiana. They need to land one of those guys, and not just one. You get Trent Sisley now, who's off to Montverde playing, and of course Jalen Harrelson. That's the big three if Malachi Moreno heads elsewhere. And they're in pretty good position with, I think they land 2 out of those 3. I'm saying 2. I think Jalen Harrelson ends up in Bloomington. Now, I have predicted that Braylon Mullins does the same, but his summer has really blown up. Harrelson, his summer has already been good. He's already been rolling. So, hey, we've gone over. I've got to take a break. We've got Todd Leary waiting in the wings. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Hey Nick, if that ever happens, don't be afraid to jump on and remind me, because sometimes I don't always see that stuff.
Gotcha.
And I went over the clock. I mean, I went way over by 5 minutes. What's up, man?
How you doing?
I'm going to enjoy this rainy Friday just as soon as I get off here.
What are you going to do? Enjoying it? Take a nap?
That sounds like a good starting spot.
That's what you do on rainy days, isn't it?
Hey, did you see my text about next week?
Yeah, Thursday and Friday next week. Remember, every week I do every month I do the dialysis delivery stuff.
Oh,
it always starts on the 22nd.
Damn.
Yep. So
where's that
Thursday and Friday? Kentucky, Illinois, and Southern Indiana. I have 3 busy days in a row, so it'll be Thursday, Friday, and the following Monday. So I mean, those days I start at 4 a.m. and don't get done till midnight.
I should send that to Matt Taylor.
You should.
I don't know if he'd come up and play or not.
I doubt it, but he might. He's at Whistling Straits this weekend.
Damn, he's a traveler.
Yeah, he is. He's played everywhere. His last 3
so
years
is he going?
Incredible.
Well, he needs to get on the Silent Ox just to come over. Well, he's in Evansville. What the hell am I thinking? That's why they've got to get this thing online. Oh my God! Next year.
What thing?
The silent auction.
Oh, for Jordan's thing?
Yeah, because there's some good stuff on there. There's a chance to win a trip for 4 to one of their those big time golf outings.
Yeah, 1 minute.
I need to see. I probably need to reach out to him and say, "Hey, you want me to bid on this for you? Because this is a pretty good deal."
What is it? What are you talking about?
It's a trip for 4, a golfing trip for 4 to a really, really nice course, like Victoria National and that level of courses, but they're not all in Indiana.
Gotcha.
Malachi Moreno set to make his announcement today.
Yeah, we can go ahead and write that one in the books.
Yeah, actually, it's right after we get off.
Yeah,
it's
11
just perfect.
15 seconds.
And Nick, you saw that email from Fort Wayne, I assume.
I did, yeah. That is
All right.
on me. I know to
No worries.
double check now.
No worries.
We are going back in 3, 2.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday, Fun Friday, and we're starting off with the man Todd Leary, the shot father from myjumpshot.com. Don't forget, go to myjumpshot.com for anyone who has a kid, knows a kid, acts like a kid, needs help on their jump shot. You know who the shot doctor is, the shot father, I rather should say. Todd, we're getting close to actually, I'm a little surprised that Malachi Moreno is making his announcement today. We're in, mid-August, and he had visits scheduled. I know he had he has a visit scheduled for September 20th at Indiana, and to set the announcement date this far out is there. It's not even that close to his season starting, so I'm a little surprised by it.
Yeah, a little surprised because it's just it goes against what a lot of kids are doing now. And a lot of kids are, when we used to say weighing all their options or trying to see what their opportunities might be, I mean, they're taking it to another level because they're being recruited by schools, for 3 or 4 years now. And it's just, it's the process for recruiting from the staff members of the universities is a lot more difficult than it used to be, especially with the NIL money situation and all that. And so, but here, I've been saying this for years, and I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often, that even with the super highly rated kids, I'm surprised more of them don't have a school where they're like, that's where I'm going. I mean, I visited there. It's a home run. It's a win, guaranteed fact. And like, I'll just throw Malachi Moreno into that discussion in that situation. I mean, he lives 20 miles from Rupp Arena. He's grown up kind of a Kentucky fan based on what I understand. His mom is insanely involved and important in watching him play basketball. I don't see any other. This is not a recruiting miss for not just Indiana, but all the other schools that recruited him. This is based on facts that surround the situation. And when you factor into it how much money Kentucky has, NIL wise and blue blood and all of that, I don't see how this is that big a shock to anybody.
No, and
he hasn't said it yet. I hope he proves me wrong, but I don't think he's going to.
I agree with you. He's been crystal balled to Kentucky, and there, like you said, I've talked about it. It makes sense, and especially with his mom. His mom is very very much a part of his life, and they are so close. I mean, they're literally a suburb of Lexington, is all that is. I talked about that very thing with his mom. His mom will be able to see every home game he plays and several away games. Well, if he's in Indiana, that's a 3-hour one-way drive. So that makes it more difficult, which I know that there are plenty of players that don't have their parents around. But if you have the opportunity to, I can understand him doing that. He probably doesn't expect or want to be in college that long, but that's a different take on it. But I was, before you joined us, with this position, I don't know that getting a freshman, unless they're a phenom, is a big deal, because you go to the portal store, you go to the center store, and you can find one that's got 1 year of college under his belt and gotten that kind of knocked the newness off, and now you can get down to the raw basketball part like he did with Kalel Ware. And so that's not a big deal. The bigger deal to me is they need to land the guys like Jalen Harrelson, who's from Indiana and is a top recruit. Braylon Mullins, who is from Indiana and a top recruit. Getting those kinds of guys are more important than landing Malachi Moreno, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think you can necessarily just look at it on paper and say, okay, well, this is the way recruiting is going to go now. And you're better off to go land transfer portal guys than you are, incoming true freshmen. And the reason is because every kid is different. And every kid, we've said this since before time, that, some kids adjust differently. Some kids you think are going to adjust very well and very easily don't adjust very well from high school to college. And some adjust seamlessly. And so I don't think you can just lump it all together and say it's better to go to the portal or it's better to get high school kids. But I do think it only makes sense that you kind of sprinkle in a little bit of both. And every year that's going to be different because every year that pool of players is a little bit different. Like the transfer portal is going to be a little bit different every year. Different guys are going to be in it just because of attrition. And so, like, you look at the guys, Indiana, the state of Indiana is in an interesting position because they have two guys that I'm going to say are pretty similar in how they play in Sicily and Mullins. And then you add Harrelson into it. You got three guys that can play relatively the same position, and they're all the same age, and they're all from Indiana. And it just puts more pressure on. It would be so much better if those three guys were spread out, every 2 years. But obviously you can't dictate that and you can't determine that. So it's just every year it's going to be a moving target. You're going to have to change what you do. And the best part about it is it used to be when you missed out on recruits, I mean, you kind of knew what your roster was going to be the next year. And that's just definitely not the case anymore. Like we had no idea. We said this last year. And we will say it again next year. We have no idea what Indiana's roster is going to look like next year because the portal just opens opportunities for it to be completely different.
Absolutely. And with those recruits that they're chasing, they don't even know right now what their needs are going to be to follow up on what you're saying. Their needs are going to change. And the guys that they're recruiting, well, they're going to fill a void, but there will be other voids. Multiple other voids.
For sure.
And so you're never going to know anyway. But I think with these guys that we're talking about, those three, it's as much about optics as it is about the talent that they bring.
Totally.
And so it's a big, the optics are a big part of it because Indiana that's the one thing they need to get back to is winning recruiting battles over some of these schools because most of these guys, almost all of them, they're going up against the same programs, whether it's UConn, Kentucky, North Carolina, those schools, it's Kansas, it's every one of these guys. So they're going to have to win some of those recruiting battles with these Indiana guys and get that train rolling again.
Yeah, they are. And it is, I mean, optics is the absolute best way to describe it in that, they're from the state of Indiana. It's exactly like what we're talking about with Malachi Moreno. We're sitting there saying, we're pretty much assuming he's going to Kentucky because he lives 20 minutes from the campus. And, I'm not necessarily saying a school in general, the whole state of Indiana, Purdue, Notre Dame, Butler, Indiana State, like all of these schools would be seriously missing out if they don't end up signing these three kids that are from the state of Indiana that are so highly rated and recruited. And so that's the part of it you got to really try to win. We get surprised when kids from the state of Maryland, choose to go to Indiana or people from Miami like Malik Renew end up coming to Indiana. Like you got to win those wars and those battles in recruiting. And the transfer portal just changes it where it's not as important to win that. But I do think it's important from the optics perspective to get one of those three guys. Two would be fantastic. Three, I think, is wishing on a star. But yeah. I really think that if you get one of them, you got to feel pretty solid about it. If you get two, you crushed it.
Yeah, because not only are one from an optics standpoint, but these guys are all highly ranked players, especially Mullins and Harrelson. And so that kind of hits two birds. You're getting that in-state guy, but you're getting now this in-state high talented guy, and you're beating some other schools for it. As other people are going to look at it, well, they should. They're from Indiana, yada yada. It's not that easy anymore. It doesn't really matter. And Russell asking, what if Indiana only gets a one-member recruiting class in 2025? What does that mean long term? Well, Todd just talked about it. You just go to the portal store, man, and start going down aisle 5 that has the wings in it, and you go down aisle 6 that has the guards, and aisle 7 that has the centers, and that's pretty much how it's going to be. That's the good thing is there's no fear factor almost with recruiting now.
100%. That is exactly right. I mean, it used to be when if these guys all announced, let's say by November, let's say they all signed and announced in the early signing period in November. Moreno's is announcing now, but let's say all 3 of the guys from Indiana announced by November. If none of them pick Indiana, or if you're Purdue, none of them pick Purdue, then you're scrambling. Like, everybody knows those were your main targets, and you didn't get them. So now you're kind of settling, for lack of a better way of putting it, for other recruits, or what your roster is going to look like the next year. And that's just simply not the case anymore. And it doesn't mean your roster is going to be negatively impacted. You could very easily go out and win the transfer portal war and your team be in a better position than if you had signed those guys. Look, I use the Moneyball analogy. There's no crystal ball that tells what these guys are going to be like when they get to college. And so there is a little bit of a benefit to being able to let a kid mature for another year. Now, I will say this. I think what Trent Sicily's doing, going to Montverde, ups his level of potential. Well, and potential for his freshman year, because all of a sudden now it's not quite like he's playing against college players every game, but it's much closer to that than it was if he stays and plays at his high school here in Indiana. And so that gives him, I think, a little bit of an extra notch on the recruiting belt, because he's going to have played against better talent than what Braylon Mullins is going to all year long. And I don't mean that negatively. Every kid makes a decision for himself that they think is the best, and I support all those decisions. When you're going to analyze who a kid's playing against, schools are going to be able to look at Trent Sicily this year a little bit differently, because they're going to watch him all season long play against top talent.
Yeah, and his situation is a little different than, say, Braylon's. Braylon, I agree with you on Braylon, but he will play a little bit higher level of competition than Trent would have at Heritage Hills, just because it's a smaller school. It's down there in out in the country in southern Indiana, which is a great place to be. Don't get me wrong. I'm from there. I love it. But the competition matters. And, the old adage, iron sharpens iron. There's truth to that. Now he's going to be practicing every day against multiple guys that are already D1 offers or commits someplace. If people don't understand how that matters, then you need to listen to us, because it matters. When you're working at a higher level every day, it starts to become permanent. It sharpens you. You can't take the shortcuts. Right now, he's playing last year he was playing in games where he's getting triple teamed because he's like the Jolly Green Giant against a lot of these teams. That ain't going to be the case against the competition he's playing and his own teammates.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, if and it'll be the same way with Braylon Mullins. I don't know the schedule, but I mean, let me just guess. Let me just guess at it, and I could be wrong by a game or 2 or 3 here and there. But Braylon Mullins will probably play, let's say, 5 games this year that are against, I'll say like a Lawrence North or a Hamilton Southeastern or Fishers or a bigger school that has someone else that is rated really high. But when you look at that, there's still going to be 6, 7, 8 players on the floor that will not play in college at any point in time, at any level. And I'm only using it as an example, but when you take Trent Sicily, he's going to practice against guys every day at Connecticut and Kansas and places where where all these kids want to get to. And so it is definitely a benefit and a factor for them. Now, I am from Indiana. I'm an Indiana high school basketball fan, loved it. I grew up playing it. So yeah, it hurts, but it's the reality of where we are. And so you either, accept the change or adapt or die. And I'm going to use as many Moneyball quotes as I can in our segment here today. But I mean, it's a scenario where it's just the way that basketball is today and the way recruiting is and the way kids have to look at it. And I think there's not a right or wrong, but I think a best scenario for each individual kid. And I think these guys are picking what's best for them right now.
I absolutely agree. And to further that, some of the teams that Heritage Hills would play during the season, Guerin Catholic, which is a smaller Catholic school up in Carmel.
But one of the better ones they would play all year.
Exactly. But then it gets to Mount Vernon, Charlestown, South Spencer, Boonville, Corydon Central, Gibson Southern. Nothing wrong with these schools. Don't get me wrong. They're just smaller and not as dominant of Tell City, Princeton. But then you look over at even Greenfield Central, where Braylon Mullins is. Well, you've got Ben Davis on here, New Palestine, Lawrence North, Jeffersonville, Newcastle. Now, Indianapolis Shortridge, I've never heard of.
You have?
No. What is that? Just a smaller school?
I could
not
be mistaken.
Southridge, Shortridge.
Yeah, I know. I could be mistaken, but I think it was a school that closed for an extended period of time, like maybe in the 80s, 90s, 2000s or something like that, and then it reopened. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case with that. And it's like Tech and Arlington and those schools that are in Indianapolis. And so, I mean, I think it's been around for a long time. I think it might have closed. I could be wrong, but I think it did.
Well, it makes sense because that not jumping off there. They also play Muncie Central. So Lawrence Central.
Do we need to take a break? I got another point I want to make if not.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot more to get to. We've got the shot father with us, Todd Leary from myjumpshot.com. Make sure you go there and check that out. We're back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East.
Grab some coffee. I spilled coffee all over everything right before the show.
That doesn't shock me. How long we have, Nate?
We have about one more minute. A little bit more. A minute
Thank
and 30.
Okay, cool.
Todd comes on and is producing the show, baby. Could have used you last week. Or
I'm called
they
don't call me a control freak for nothing.
Staying on top of it.
Yeah,
I saw fish last night.
Really? Where?
Well, at BCC, I went over there and played 9, and afterwards I've been there for a while too, and And I'm like, I got to go in and get something to eat, take it home. And I go in and I thought it was
1 minute.
Dr. Rink.
Well, don't tell Fish you confused him for Dr. Rink.
Just from behind.
Understood.
30 seconds.
Nate, you're going to spoil us with these countdowns. I'm doing a 3-day water fast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, today's day 3. Now I'm hangry.
I bet
Yeah.
you were.
Going on in 5, 3, 2.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday. I told you it may have been 5 days ago, but I knew we were close to the weekend, and it's here now, baby. It came back, as it always does, and it's a happy Friday, and it's raining, and I don't get. Actually, that makes it even happier for me. That means you can't do nearly as much. But Todd Leary, the shot father from myjumpshot.com, with us. And before we get going, I saw Fish last night. Don Fisher, of course. He was down, unfortunately, for a funeral. Someone I did not know, but didn't expect to see him. But we had a good chat talking about football. He's a believer in as well. And I mean, we were talking about it. This is a complete regular conversation. And I told him, I said, I've got the same feelings. I said, I hate to say this, because I know how it's going to come across. But there are a lot of things about Kurt Cignetti that remind me of how Bob Knight coached in some ways. But I'm talking about the preparedness. I'm talking about the organization. I'm talking about the unbelievable attention to detail, and that it has to be right. And all the conversations I've had with you, been fortunate to have with you and other former players, I just think about that. I mean, it was an offense of not perfection, but of options, but you had to make the right decision. It was just about making right decisions. And that's the same with what he's putting with Cignetti is his offense, because his offense is a quick hit, multifaceted offense. You don't know if the ball is going to be handed off to a running back, if it's going to be thrown to a running back, if it's going to be thrown to a slot receiver or to a tight end or a wideout, or the quarterback's going to run it. That's the great thing about this offense, and it's quick hitting. So I'm looking so forward to that. And Don had a lot of the same thoughts. He is very pro Cignetti and what is going to happen this year.
Yeah, he is. And I've talked to him about it a little bit, and he's, you can kind of, I think, take a lot of people's enthusiasm and just basically lump it into being homers and that stuff. When you're talking about the typical fan, which is what I am and all that, like, I get excited for it. I'm kind of a homer. I want them to be good, so I will, lean towards the side of them being good and excited about the season. But when Fish, a guy who goes to practice all the time and interviews Coach Sig, and when a guy like that has seen so many different coaches and has seen so many different programs over the year built, when he gets that excited about it, you take a little bit different note of it. Like I'm more excited that Fish is excited than that I'm excited, because he has a little more inside knowledge than I do of what they're doing and all of that. So that part of it makes me, really look forward to seeing the product they put out on the field. And I mean, it's just so incredible to think about what they've done, marketing standpoint only, because they've not won a single game. But you take the end of last football season, and you got a program that couldn't have been much more in the dumps than it was, to being this excited to watch game one. They've definitely bottled something there.
Jeremy Gray was on with us earlier in the week. They've had a 10% bump in season ticket sales. It's very hard to find a program that gets a 10% bump in season ticket sales after a 1-8 Big Ten season.
Yep.
That usually doesn't happen very often. And
For
that's
sure.
the thing I keep talking about. A lot of the national guys are looking at Indiana as that 1-8 Big Ten team last year.
Sure.
And I get it. That's just, this is not that team's all I keep saying. That team's gone. Just like Washington. They played in the national championship last year. They won't even sniff the national championship unless they have a ticket this year. So because they're a different team completely. So it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. We're not that far away. I've been trying to, I'm in the process of booking my stuff for Los Angeles to go to the UCLA game at the Rose Bowl. That's going to be fantastic. And I think it's going to be a good and winnable game for Indiana. And that's a linchpin game because if they win that, they have a path to 6-0, which would be mind-boggling.
We think we're excited now. Let this team start out 6-0, and our second segment will be talking about basketball, and our first segment will be talking about football from now on. If they start out 6-0, there'll be a lot of excitement in Bloomington. And I have always said this from all the way back when I was in school, is all of the programs, every one of them, not just basketball, not just women's basketball, not just volleyball or baseball, every program benefits from your football team being good. It's just a fact. It's the big money. It's the big money maker. That's why Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama and all of those schools have unlimited funds, because their football program is a cash cow. And this we don't even need Indiana to be on that level. We need to get it close to that level, because right now we're not even in the same league.
Gritty thinks I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, which
we are. I'm admitting I'm drinking the Kool-Aid for sure.
I'm acknowledging. Well, normally someone called me the other day. They were surprised. They were like, "Wow, look at you being all positive." And I'm like, "I'm not negative. I just say what appears that things appear to be and they appear to be setting up for a potentially fantastic season for this program. It's program altering. Then you throw in the fact that they are a very, very real player in the lottery for Juju Lewis, who was the 2026 top-ranked quarterback in the country, moved up to the 25 class. So he's in like the top 5 now. It doesn't matter. He's still a top-ranked quarterback. But Indiana is very much a part of that picture. And this is a guy who's been committed to USC for a year, that Auburn wants, that Dion wants. But we've already had a national pundit come out and say that they think Indiana is the leader. That is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. And hey, Gritty, you are right. I have drank the Kool-Aid, and I'll tell you this: we have a lot.
She didn't say you; she said me. I'm like, "Oh, hey, that's okay. I can be positive."
We as a school and a fan base have a lot riding on this season being successful. Now, successful doesn't mean 11-2, but being much more competitive in the games you need to be competitive in. We have a lot riding on that, because coming off of the low that we were all at from a football perspective with this program just last season, at the end of last season, to as excited as we are now, because we have something new, we're being sold something new. And if that product doesn't at least have a serious look like it's going to be better, then we're really in trouble. Then we're really, really in trouble.
Well, it's in the Big Ten. Even though the Big Ten has grown this year, their fortunes at the top have not. You've got Oregon and Ohio State, maybe Penn State. Michigan, I'm starting to have a lot of question marks about because of all that's going on. After that, that's just a big old fat group that Indiana's a part of, that I don't know who's going to do what and finish where, which there's some fun to that, because I think that there's a lot of parity in that big middle group for the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, Do we expect them to come out and win at Ohio State this year? I mean,
No.
probably not.
No.
But you know what? Like, I want to be excited going into the game. I think it's pretty late in the year. I think that's like close to the
Second to last game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to go into that game thinking, okay, if they played great, they could put themselves in a position in the fourth quarter to have a chance. And, what all the games that lead up to that are going to dictate whether we really have that feeling or not. I don't want here's where I'm just kind of old school in this. If we beat them, I don't want it to be a fluke. I want to go in there and just overpower them and pound them and be faster than them and do everything that you need to do to win and be dominant. Like, that's the victory I want. But obviously we would take any kind of victory. I don't want it to be a fluke. Like, I don't want to have to hope that a miracle happens every game. I want them to be good. The product that's on the field is good. And I feel like it's going to be, but I have no basis. I mean, I'm selling ice cube to Eskimos right now. If I can convince them that this team's good.
The basis is the fact that Curt Cignetti is the fourth winningest coach in football by percentage. And everybody's going to say, well, he didn't do it to Big Ten. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, whatever. Then I'll say, did Lance Leipold do it in the Big 12 before he did it at Buffalo? No. But guess what? It worked. Who was at Buffalo the same time he was winning like crazy? Nate Oates. How'd that work out for both of those guys as they moved up? Pretty damn well. They're both doing well. So does it always? No. But another thing I like about this is that he has not jumped and tried to go from here to there. He went someplace and stayed there, made it work. Went to someplace else, stayed there, made it work. So he is very profound in being able to do that kind of job. He builds a
program, a culture, and not just a team for a year or whatever it is. He's trying to develop and build a culture, and he's been successful at doing that. The people who sit there and say, hey, his winning percentage doesn't seem as important as it is because it's not been at a Big Ten or SEC school or whatever. I'm in that boat. I'm a person that agrees with that. I don't. When you take Kalen DeBoer's winning percentage going to Alabama,
he wasn't even in the NCAA.
Right. That's insignificant. Do I think Kalen DeBoer is not going to be great? No, I think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be awesome. But I don't think his winning percentage is the reason why I think that, because it's not been at the same level. And I'll just this is kind of the argument you fight when you're playing in Indianapolis schools in high school and basketball versus the Heritage Hills schools of the world where, they don't play the competition. Pat Graham and I used to have this argument all the time about Floyd Central, and he would always bring up, we played Jeffersonville and New Albany and all these, and I'm like, yeah, but you play schools I've literally never heard of.
Man!
And so that's just the argument that you have. Their winning percentage, hey, it's a lot better than saying that those coaches' winning percentages aren't very good and they've been at a smaller school. So I just don't think that's the factor in why I'm sold on the culture and it's going to be good. But I hope that we're able to lean back on that. I get where the people out there say those winning percentages don't mean anything. I kind of agree with that. They don't, but that's not the reason why I'm on board with them.
You had another point you wanted to make before we went to break last time.
Oh yeah, we were talking earlier about the recruiting and getting high school kids versus the transfer portal and all that. And I just wanted to make a point about a guy like Trent Sicily as a great example. I think this worked out for Indiana a few years ago when they got two guys from one of these schools when they had Jalen Huchafino and Malik Renew to both come from Montverde. When you can infiltrate a program like that, and let's just say there is no commitment from Trent Sicily right now. Whatever school he gets committed to will, I think, have a little bit of an inside track into being able to get other kids from that school. And that's where I think you can really benefit from getting a kid that's from the state, whether it's Sicily or Mullins or whomever else, Jalen Harrelson, or other years with other kids. Off to those prep schools, got a little bit of a leg up in getting those other top recruits that are from there. And you really hit a home run when you look what Indiana was able to accomplish in getting Renew and Hood-Schifino. I mean, I would say those guys' careers are going to end up being pretty successful at Indiana University.
Absolutely. So they've got a good start there. What's up next for you, brother?
Just waiting on football season to start. I'm on my third day of a 3-day water fast, so I'm not very friendly.
So
today.
what
I'm
all
just
does
gonna
that
hide out.
entail? Do you not
You drink
do you not
water
get
for 3 days?
no eating at all?
Bone broth.
Huh?
2 servings of bone broth on day 2
What
and
the
day
hell's
3.
bone broth? I've heard of
Yeah,
meat broth
you
and chicken
don't
broth,
want
but
it.
I've never heard of bone broth.
You don't want it. You don't
No,
want it.
I don't.
It's hot
You're
water. It's
already
hot
in
water.
great shape.
It's hot
You're
water.
getting down to it sounds like it. So what spurred this? Because you're already in great shape.
Yeah, no, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Lose a little yardage off the drive?
Yeah, just the doctors might have recommended I do some different things, and I needed it to reset. I read a lot about it. I watched stuff about it. It kind of resets your brain chemicals and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to try it, and it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. I like food a lot more than I thought I did. It's amazing how much I actually think about food.
Hey, that's why I do not keep things around that I shouldn't eat, because I promise you, if it's here or if it's at home, it will get eaten.
It's getting it here. Yeah, for sure.
Get in my belly.
Yep, no
That's
doubt.
exactly
I have
what I
zero
say,
willpower when it comes to food.
Yeah, Bill. Yeah, we'll talk about that, Bill. Well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it as always, and looking forward to getting the football season started. I know you're a fan of Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs. Jessica's a big fan of Georgia. Did she go to Georgia? I forget, or just from Georgia?
Grad school, went to Georgia. Yep.
Oh man, big time in this. Number one,
she got 2 degrees. I have 1, so you can see I'm already behind in the household.
Yeah, that started right off the bat though. Degreeless.
Yeah.
She could have had a GED, and that may still be the case.
Yep.
Just kidding, man. The great Todd Leary, this Todd father, the shot father. Go to myjumpshot.com, and especially we're getting toward the season, wrapping up the summer. Get those kids a tune-up, baby. Get them ready for this year. Turn them into a Mr. Basketball. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you.
You betcha. Todd Leary joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We've got lots more coming up. Zach Osterman from the Indy Stars going to join us. We're also going to hear from Adam Gorney, the Yahoo and Rivals national recruiting analyst, talking about Indiana, the Big Ten, and Juju Lewis. So plenty more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Looking forward to it. Back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
I figured we should have gone to 54, right?
Honestly, that might be like just about perfect with adding the outro on as well. So yeah, should be like maybe like a little less than 54, like that high 53s, but it'll be good.
That's fine. That's fine. The fact that we're that close is amazing. So where are these bigger? Why do I have less options this morning? Oh, there they are. Nope, wrong one. Oh.
Yeah, then this second segment is about 13 minutes.
Damn it. I didn't have you send that to Travis Miller. Or did I?
The email?
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have gotten it. Him and Zach.
Reach out to Travis. I didn't talk to him. He's kind of gotten moved around lately.
Gotcha.
Did you see the email I sent you? Not the one about Fort Wayne, the other one.
Yeah, the Battle at the Bricks.
Yeah, what?
Yeah,
What?
so it's IMSA. They're doing like a 6-hour sports car race.
Oh, IMSA, which is what?
It's their like the sports cars and the prototype cars.
What's that stand for?
I always forget it.
International Motor Scooter Association.
Yep, International Motorsports Association.
That was close. Yeah, 5. That's a good question.
And we should be going back in about 15 seconds, by the way.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah. Then IndyCar is at Iowa this weekend as well. It's exciting.
Well, let's
Back
talk
in
about
action.
that. Or Zach joins us next. So
Okay, we're set to go live now. So
and we'll also find out where NASCAR is going.
okie dokie. All right, you ready?
Yep.
3, 2.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
We got you here, man. It just seems like it was 4 days ago. It was Monday. Oh, it was. We were talking in the break with Nick. I think the IndyCar is in St. Louis this weekend.
Finally back from their summer break, so it's about time.
What track does St. Louis have?
So it's actually in Illinois. It's Gateway Raceway. It's a little oval, short track oval there.
Really? For IndyCar, short track.
Yeah, it's normally produced some pretty good racing, so we'll see.
Short tracks are always fun, and no matter what, because not in IndyCars, but you usually get a little contact in most racings on the short tracks, but that's very difficult for IndyCars. You can't; those cars are not built for contact.
No, and especially with like how big these the aero kits are getting like each year, it seems like they're just getting bigger and bigger. Cars are getting bigger, and it's when you throw them on these small tracks, it's not a lot of room to race or wiggle, touch and bump or whatnot. So emotions can get pretty heated pretty quick. That's how it was at Iowa this earlier this season, and probably going to be like that at Milwaukee as well. So
Brian says it's like a paperclip. What is it? Martinsville, there's a NASCAR track. Martinsville, I forget, or where they race for the grandfather clock. One of them, just a paper clip, man. Kind of a short, and the straightaways are not that long. It's
right.
Not even, these are not even mile tracks, I think. But yeah, it's different. But that's that would be kind of wild to watch Indy. That may be worth watching.
Yeah, I'll tell you one person to look out for is David Malukas there. He has never finished worse than third. In IndyCar, he's finished second and third there in the last 2 races. Then before IndyCar in NXT, he finished first, and third in those previous races there. So kind of an oval expert, it seems like.
Certain drivers love certain tracks and drive them well. Where's NASCAR this weekend?
Up at Michigan International.
Oh, wow. The big track.
Where I wish IndyCar would go again, but I don't think we'll ever see that.
Is that a 2.5 mile track?
Yeah, it's same as Indy.
Oh, it is.
Big one. Yep.
Yeah. So, but the difference in NASCAR and IndyCar is the NASCARs have different packages for these different tracks. The car, this next gen car, whatever the heck it is, they keep making changes to get closer. To get closer to like what IndyCar is, where the cars are pretty much all the same. Where that way, you're not bringing in a different motor that's not allowed. Everything is there are parameters for everything. Whereas in Indy, most of the motors are built by the same. They're either Honda or what's the
Honda or
other one?
Chevy.
So you've only got 2 engines in all of IndyCar, whereas in NASCAR, you probably don't have a whole lot more than that. I think that there are probably
you get a little bit more
Hendrick
variety.
that makes them. There are more that make their own, but I think that it's more of a manufacturer driven sport. NASCAR is, because you've got Toyota, Chevy, and Ford, all of those manufacturers wanting success, of course. So I'm sure that there's a lot of conversations that goes on between those. But let's see, up in Michigan, so they are three races from the playoffs in NASCAR, I believe.
Is it that close? Gosh, that season, they start a lot earlier than most other races.
Well, that's just starting the playoffs, but it got shaken up tremendously last week with a very unexpected win by Austin Dillon, who was not even, he was like in 28th or something in the playoff picture, which they take the top 16. So he had no shot at making the playoffs unless he wins a race. And he was leading pretty successfully toward the end and was heading towards victory until there was a late caution, set up a restart, got beat, got behind Joey Logano, and they're coming out of the final turn on the final lap in overtime, no less. And he's 4 car lengths back and just dives into the corner with no chance of coming out of that corner successfully if he doesn't hit Joey Logano to absorb a lot of that energy, which he does, boots him out of the way. The amazing thing is, though, up comes Denny Hamlin underneath, flying by, and I don't know if Austin Dillon just happened to see that and was able to bounce off of Joey Logano and then catch Denny Hamlin in the right rear quarter and spin him right before the start-finish line. So he took 2 guys out to win that race. Nothing will be done. It's against the rules, but nothing will be done. And part of it, I think, is because they're throwing a bone to Richard Childress Racing, the former shop where Dale Earnhardt raced. It was the number 3 car that won. And because I promise you, had that been Dale Earnhardt, there wouldn't even be much of a discussion about this. But I don't know. I don't know what my thoughts are on that. I know the drivers weren't happy. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I saw a clip on I think it was Twitter or something, and I think it was his spotter where he's just like starts screaming like crash him, crash him, crash him. And it seemed to be going viral. Then it's like you can see that along with like the telemetry. It's like apparently he makes like a sharp right or left turn like as soon as he starts to make contact with the car in front of him. So it's like it seems like he's caught red-handed here, and the penalty was deserved. So
yeah, and well, they have all, just like most cars have now, they have the technology on each and every one of these cars. They can tell if they turn the wheel left at the same time that they're accelerating. They can break down all the data. They can tell you exactly what happened and how it happened. They can sit and go, see right here, this is where you hit your accelerator and turns your right wheel into this driver. So there's nothing you can get away with as far as proving now, but NASCAR kind of likes it. They like the chatter. They need the chatter. They need the controversy. Now, someone like Bubba Wallace, who was sitting right on the playoffs edge, he got screwed. There's a couple of guys that are right there on the edge. One, I forget who, was just inside of making the playoffs. Bubba Wallace was right there, and then someone else. Those guys just got screwed. They all got knocked down a spot. Guaranteed that at least one of those guys will not make the playoffs now.
Yeah, not looking very good over there. And I don't know. I've never been the biggest of NASCAR fans, so I will try to hold my tongue, but it seems there's a lot of artificialness going on. And it's I don't know. A lot of that I personally think comes down just to the cars and the racing. It's just not that exciting, so they got to find other ways to make it exciting for the fans and keep engagement up. So,
well, I mean, I do like the fact that they make contact.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But making contact and taking guys out.
Yeah.
What the hell?
And yeah, when it's just a week by week thing, and it's just a different driver, different week, and sometimes it goes unpunished, sometimes it does. It's not very consistent.
And Brian hit it kind of on the head. NASCAR gives off some pro wrestling vibes.
You were not wrong.
I guarantee that's kind of they need that. Because they're still not, I don't want to say a national brand. They are, but it's not as the fan base is still kind of you're either a NASCAR fan or you're not. I don't think there's a lot of ancillary fans.
Yeah.
In NASCAR.
It's hard to be in between.
Yeah. And what else was I going to say? Oh, now if something like that happened in like the first or second lap, I would like to see how that goes.
Oh man, that spark for an interesting race, that's for sure.
Let's jump in. Well, actually, it's time to take a break. When we come back, Zach Osterman will join us, and we'll get a chat with him. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
Segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Hey, Zach.
Am I in here?
Yeah, we're on a break.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Our email security hates StreamYard links. And it just was refusing to open that. I don't know why. I'm sorry. It's always StreamYard. I don't know what it is.
Well, Nick is sending these now, our new producer, and I think because he's sending them from an Apple, because they look different even to me, that I don't have a problem getting them open, but they definitely have a different look.
This has gone on for me forever, though. I have to
go through
layers of security, and I have to reauthorize my email all the time, and sometimes they just flat. It's I don't know what it is. It's something to do with StreamYard links. It's because every once in a while I have to reauthorize the ability to open links out of emails, for security purposes. But nothing ever gives me so much trouble as StreamYard. Anyway, I'm driving up to football practice, so I'm sorry I'm late. I've been.
That's okay.
15
minutes. You'll be on here at the same time with Travis Miller from Boiler Upload, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Travis, Zach Osterman.
I don't bite.
We go back
Travis,
in 1 minute.
Travis, can you turn your camera sideways or your phone? There you go. Oh, yeah. Give us that full view, baby. Yeah, I saw Fish last night, Zach.
You saw who?
Fish.
Oh yeah, where?
He was down in Bloomington at the BCC. He was just having dinner. He'd stopped by. He was in town for a funeral for someone who I did not know the name, but
yeah, I think I know. I don't know her name either, but I have a number of friends who know her. I think I know who you're talking about. But yeah.
20
yeah,
seconds.
I wish I was heading to practice. Travis, you been able to get out to practice much?
Not yet, but I know Jason's been up there, and I think Casey's been too. So they've been putting a lot of video up for us.
Back in 3, 2, 1.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Friday, the best day of the week, baby, because the weekend is coming behind it. Joined now by Zach Osterman, the IU beat writer for the Indy Star, and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload, as we are getting closer and closer to the kickoff of the college football season. We're about 2 weeks away, 2 weeks from tomorrow for most teams kicking it off. And Zach, Indiana's practices are continuing. There's not a lot of news that's been coming out, which is a good thing, other than the horrible loss of Nick Kidwell for them on the offensive line, which that's probably the most tenuous areas on Indiana's offense. I don't want to use the word concern, but wondering how that's going to be, because the running backs room looks to be more than solid. The wide receivers room is solid. Quarterback, they're solid. Offensive line, that's going to be a question mark until we see them, but that's going to be a linchpin on how well this offense can run, although it is a quick strike type of offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say it's the position when you factor in, if you kind of set tight end to one side, because we're not sure exactly how much tight end Indiana's going to use and therefore need this season. Obviously, they're going to play some tight end, but I don't think it's going to be quite as much 11 personnel as, Tom Allen's offenses were kind of, no matter who was running them, tended to be one tight end, one back most of the time. I think this, might be one back, four wide out more often than people realize. So if you kind of push tight end to one side a little bit, offensive line was always sort of the one position that you weren't sure necessarily, not so much, I guess, your top line guys, but depth. You've got Taven Jackson behind Curtis Rourke. You've got a lot of guys you can rotate at receiver. As you said, you've got a lot of guys you can sort of spin through at running back. On paper, anyway, you liked Indiana having 4 or 5, solid guys between a couple guys back, Carter Smith, Bray Lynch, Mike Kadick, and then obviously transfers like Trey Wettig and Tyler Stevens and Nick Kidwell. You felt like Indiana had kind of a solid, maybe 5, 6, but you didn't quite know what Indiana had behind that. And I think you might be in a position now where you're going to have to find out whether that's, throwing a guy into the deep end a little bit more, maybe like somebody like Austin Barrett, who's a redshirt freshman, or maybe it's even, looking at one of your true freshmen and saying we might have to, burn the red shirt this year because we're just going to need some depth. I think Kidwell was likely to start at one of the guard positions. So you're probably looking at somebody that's a little bit more comfortable in the interior of the line. But I think depth is the thing you probably didn't want to have to be testing already on that offensive line, and that's what obviously this is going to do with Kidwell out.
Travis, for Purdue on their offensive side, what is the area of with the biggest question marks, I guess I would say?
I think Purdue kind of has the opposite with their offensive line. I think it's a major strength. They returned 3 starters in Marcus Mbow, Mahamane Musa, and Gus Hartwig, and these are guys that have been multi-year starters. So that is something really strong to build around. And then they added a lot of depth with starters in the portal. So I think they can go 7, 8, 9 guys deep on the offensive line, which is huge, especially in a program like Purdue. I think the biggest question mark is wide receiver, honestly. They lost a lot from last year to the transfer portal with Deion Burks and Abdur-Rahman Yassin, but they did pick up some guys. They picked up a couple of guys from Georgia that were promising recruits. You're talking 4-star guys. They went to Georgia. Georgia just doesn't recruit anybody. And then I'm liking to see what Jerron Tibbs does out of Indianapolis. He played late last season as a true freshman. And then at tight end, I think they're very, very deep. That'll help. Last year, Ryan Walters and Graham Harrell showed that they wanted to use tight end a lot. They get Drew Bieber back, and they get Max Clare back, who Max Clare was really one of their top receivers on the season before he went down with a knee injury at about the 5th or 6th game. So he was a pleasant surprise last year. He comes back healthy. And then I know in the Indiana game, it was George Burhan kind of came out of nowhere and had a fantastic game against IU, had a touchdown in that game. And, that is an area that I think Purdue is going to rely on the tight end. And I think there'll be some new faces. Another guy that's coming back from injury, Jamal Edrin. He was supposed to be a major contributor last year, came out of the transfer portal from Florida Atlantic, hurt his knee, and camp didn't play a down. He's supposed to be back this year, and I think he will have a breakout season for Purdue.
And Zach, on the other side of the ball, the defensive side, I know in the back in the secondary, Indiana is very, very strong. Not question marks, but just wondering what the defensive line is going to be. There seems to be a little more depth there than the offensive line in the linebacker and lineman core, and we'll get to Zach with that in a second. I'll go to Travis first, though. On the defensive side, what's the first? Is there an area of concern or wonder what's this going to be like?
I think a lot of it just comes to how things are going to shake out. Again, Ryan Walters is trying to build his team through the transfer portal. He wants to win some games now. And when you do that, it's always a question of where do these guys fit in and how much will they contribute immediately. There are some very good pieces to build around on the defense with Cordy Signor. You have obviously Dylan Thieneman had a phenomenal season last year as Big Ten Freshman of the Year. And that is kind of what Walters wants to build his defense around. He's got Thieneman back as the deep safety, and he kind of wants to be aggressive with that top 10. And Thieneman's the emergency guy of, okay, if somebody gets past these 10 guys, Thieneman's going to run them down. And it's unique, but I kind of like how he wants to be aggressive on the ends, and he's gotten some new Russians. Will Help looks pretty solid, and he's had a great fall camp here out of Carmel, and I think he's another guy that's going to really produce as a Russian.
Zach, on the defensive side for Indiana, their defensive backfield, they're very strong back there. And up front, I think that they have a little more depth than they do on the offensive side of the line. And some new linebackers, Linnell Carr, one of those guys, the edge guys. What is the front looking like for the Hoosiers right now? I think we may have lost Zach.
There we
go. As he is.
Go.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Back. Sorry about that. Yeah. I was just asking on the defensive.
No, I think you. No, I was gonna say I heard the question. I think you got more bodies in some of those areas. I think what you don't have is maybe as much certainty, if that makes sense. You think about defensive line, for example. I think Indiana needs to build depth. I think you've got a lot of pieces. But how many guys, again, and this is maybe pre the Kidwell injury, but how many guys does Indiana have on that defensive line that it maybe feels like it can trust as much as, Carter Smith, Mike Kadick, Nick Kidwell, Trey Wettig, et cetera. But I think that Indiana has done a good job of building up through the portal, particularly, we've talked about it before, but those spring additions, those spring portal additions, D'Angelo Pons at corner, CJ West at tackle. I think, adding one guy doesn't fix all your problems, but it did feel like bringing those two in just kind of slid everybody else into a slightly more natural place, if that makes any sense. And I think that Indiana, again, is probably going to be in a position where it can't afford injuries in some spots. Particularly, I would say defensive tackle, but I think that you've got maybe more bodies, but a little bit more to sort through, a little bit less that's kind of proven reliable right now.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the season getting started because as I've said so many times, this the schedule for Indiana is going to be a potentially fun one. Purdue, on the other hand, has quite the opposite, where Indiana has 8 home games and a schedule that is worked out for them with all the changes of the other teams. Purdue, they drew the bad stick this year. The Big Ten was not kind to them, and their own scheduling didn't help them out as they have a home game with Notre Dame, and they travel to Oregon State. It's going to be tough for Purdue to hit that 6-win mark. I think I can see 5 wins. Getting that 6th win will take an upset of sorts, and if they can manage that, great. But I think Travis, that Purdue is going to have to upset someone to get to 6 wins.
I can see that, and my hot pick so far has been I think they will upset one of Oregon, Notre Dame, or Penn State at home. I think they get one of those games. Just there's a lot of positivity coming from camp right now. There's a lot of there's a chip on their shoulder with the whole being picked to finish dead last in the Big Ten. I know they didn't like that. And I think they got one upset in them. There's always the unranked Purdue versus a top 5 team voodoo that is out there. I know Jeff Brom was able to take advantage of it 3 times where he knocked off a top 5 team as an unranked team. And that voodoo is going to get a workout this year. I mean, Purdue faces 4 of the top 8 teams in the preseason AP poll. That is difficult for anybody. But they've shown historically and under multiple coaches, they can go out and bite somebody. And with 3 of those games at home, one of them a premier night game against Oregon, I think they get one of them. And, the first shot's going to be Notre Dame coming off of a bye week. Notre Dame has a lot of questions on the offensive line that they need to settle out. Am I saying that it's a guarantee that they're going to upset the Irish? No, but that is a big game. It's the first time Notre Dame is coming to West Lafayette in 11 years, I think it is. It's going to be an exciting game, and I think that will be very competitive, and it's going to say a lot about how far Purdue can go this year.
Future opponent for Indiana, Zach. I know you've got to get going, so I'll ask you one last thing and let you get to the press conferences that are going on. We're at the end of week 3 of fall camp?
Yeah, full. Well, yeah. Second full week. Third, there's practices this week, if that makes sense.
I know you haven't been able to get to everything, and there's not a lot that we're allowed to see with the open practices, but have you seen any difference? Is the tone, is there anything that just sounds different of growth or whatever the case may be?
I don't know if the word would be different. I think the one thing that probably stands out to me, and this is a little bit, reflective of maybe the choices Indiana staff made to go portal heavy with the roster rebuild. It's probably just a little bit reflective of, where we are in kind of college football or, college sports in general with the portal and NIL. But Indiana, for the fact that you consider Indiana turned over more than half of its countable scholarships, they're still a pretty experienced team. Now, obviously not all that experience at Indiana, but you think about, if you go across the positions and where different guys or what guys Indiana is going to be counting on in different spots, you're still talking about 4th, 5th, even 6th year players in a lot of key positions, center, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Go to the other side of the ball. Again, a lot of experienced transfers, kept obviously some guys around, Josh Sanguinetti, Linnell Carr, that have experience at Indiana. But it's just interesting, normally, I guess in the old way of thinking about roster management and construction, you would have said that that a roster that turned over as much as Indiana's did from the end of last season through the offseason would probably be really young and inexperienced. This one doesn't feel that way. Now, does that translate? We'll see. And obviously that throws up its own long-term sort of questions about the fact that you're going to have to go back into the portal and replace a lot of these guys again next year, because a lot of them are, seniors, 5th-year seniors, even 6th-year guys that aren't going to have any eligibility after this fall. But, it is interesting just to see how old a Big Ten team can stay because of the portal, even through a pretty sort of tumultuous, I don't want to say tumultuous, but even through a high turnover coaching change. And I think that's probably stood out as much as any sort of, I guess, blanket observation I've made during fall camp.
Zach Osterman, I'll let you go because I know you got to get in there. Tell everybody I said hello at the presser. Wish they didn't have that stuff during the show.
Will do. Sorry about my trouble getting in. I apologize for being late.
Never a problem, brother. We appreciate you. Enjoy your day and your weekend. Zach Osterman joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Weekend. Indiana Sports Beat Weekend. Hey, that's a new show. Travis, it just came up there.
Hey, Travis Miller.
Travis Miller from Boiler Upload still with us. I'm just ready for football to get started. yeah, the non-con games, that'll be okay because everybody should win and get a good all those feel goods going to start the season. But I'm ready for the stuff. I'm ready for Indiana against UCLA, Purdue against either Oregon State or Notre Dame. I don't know what Notre Dame's going to truly be like. They're ranked 7th, yeah, but partly because it says Notre Dame on their chest. I don't know. I'm not saying they're not a top 25 team. If they're not one, that's ludicrous because they should always be, but it doesn't always work out that way. And getting them early like that, that's when you're going to upset a team, is getting them early. And if you're on top of your game, which this is the second year for Ryan Walters and his staff, so there's a slight advantage there. Travis, I pointed out just on Indiana's schedule, I haven't even looked at the entire Big Ten. 9 of their 9 conference games, 7 of them are against teams whose coach has just been there for 1 or 2 seasons.
That's wild. And that's what you got.
Mind-boggling.
I mean, I think it's what? PJ Fleck might be the second longest tenured coach in the Big Ten now.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
Fine Ferentz, yeah. How much do you give Schiano credit for being 2 separate tenures at Rutgers? But I mean,
doesn't count.
Shoot. I mean, it might be Fleck. I can't think of James Franklin.
James Franklin, yeah. But even that, what's he been there? 5-6 years?
Something like that. I mean, you just don't have guys that stick around like Kirk Ferentz anymore. And who knows what Kirk Ferentz reminds me of Basil Mawby for high school basketball. He does not care if he scores 14 points as long as his defense gives up 13 or less. He does not care. And you know what? It works. He won 10 games last year. You can't argue with results. So
yeah, but his son got fired doing that. And Iowa there's not going to be pressure on Kirk Ferentz. He's an institution. He's not going anywhere. They can get him to fire his assistants when it's his son or whatever. But he's a winner, and so has no worries about going anywhere. But I haven't looked at Iowa's schedule. They're not on Indiana's schedule, so I haven't paid much attention to it. But I'm wondering what the year is going to be like for them. This is if you're a solid Big Ten team, you had the chance to have a good season this year because with the new additions, besides Oregon, USC probably. The other two, I'm not expecting. Washington could be a little surprise. You don't know what Judd Fester's going to do. He's a good coach. Did a great job at Arizona. Obviously, he's why he got the Washington job. But everybody's gone. He lost all the big players. Roma Dunze is gone. Michael Penix Jr. is gone. Their offensive coordinator is now with the Seahawks. Their head coach is now at Alabama. So they lost tons. It's like Michigan. I think Michigan is a bigger question mark than people are acknowledging. They're putting them up there because they're last year's national champion and it's Michigan, yada, yada. And I'm like, yeah, but that success was built off of cheating for those 2 years. Seriously, it was. Because if you look before the 7 years prior to that, he got his butt waxed by Ryan Day and Ohio State for 7 straight years. They just couldn't get any traction. So now that that's gone and all that they've lost on the offense, quarterback J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum and the line and the defensive coaches and the issues they've got going, man, they could. Is Michigan on Purdue's schedule?
No, Michigan is not on Purdue's schedule. Thank goodness. we have enough to deal with.
Well, that is true. But that would have been a good one to trade for somebody this year because I think Michigan is going to be primed to be upset most of the season.
I think it would have been neat to get USC. I don't trust them. Their defense has just been horrendously bad the last few years, and now they're not USC. They're not USC. I don't think that they're coming into the Big Ten as this big monster. I think Oregon is by far the better of the 4 teams that's coming in. And I honestly would put Washington ahead of USC. I just,
wow.
How many games can you win 45-42? How successful is your team winning 45-42?
Ask Kevin Wilson that question.
But until I see the results of their defense being improved, I think they're middle tier Big Ten.
Man, what's up for you this weekend?
Not much. Just gonna take it easy, trying to relax a little bit before, like you said, football season starts and everything. And I think it's exciting that you already have the college sports season starting. Last night, women's soccer got underway. So those are the kind of first events of the 2024-25 college sports season. And Purdue's coach, Richard Moody, gets a win in his debut as they beat Washington State. Is that a conference game now? I don't know. Who knows? But
it should be. I believe Indiana women played Tennessee in soccer, so I'm curious about that. I know that the men's soccer has had an exhibition game, and they have one this weekend at Louisville. Another pretty good soccer power along those lines. So that should always be good to watch. Why they're playing an exhibition against Louisville, I don't know. That should always be a regular season match.
No, I agree. And the funny one that I'm going to promote this year is Alabama's women's soccer team comes to Purdue, and it's about time Alabama football stopped dodging Purdue. Of course, they had to wait for Nick Saban to retire because he was scared of Purdue and just kept ducking us year after year after year. That's right, Saban. 3-game active losing streak. You went into retirement. Bring it.
Oh, our good friend Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. If you're a Boiler fan or just a sports fan, make sure you give him a follow. Go there, follow that content. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
As always, speaking of Indiana women's soccer, they get the win over Tennessee, and they are starting the season 1-0. That program has really risen over the last few years under Coach Van Bredekom. So congratulations to them. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Adam Gorney and more on IU football, the Big Ten, and Juju Lewis right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel.
Now, I don't think that I recorded an out on this, did I?
No, it goes into I think it goes into like another segment, or like this segment is brought to you by.
Well, you need to stop it. Just try to stop it.
Okay.
Because it'll be time. All right, so we're back in what, 2 more minutes?
At 1:35:35.
1:35 is when we're back. How long is this?
13 minutes.
So we'll have 6 minutes remaining.
It's not bad.
Say five and a half to add the out. So yeah, try to, as soon as I stop talking.
Yep.
Or thinking, just cut it out and I'll just pick it up.
Gotcha.
And run these last minutes out. Man, we're getting closer to these Fridays being some preview Fridays.
I know. It's freaking every single day we get closer. My friends and I have just been sitting there getting our fantasy league ready, and just like, I'm getting so excited.
What the hell is this from? Oh, don't forget, if you want to get credentialed for that
yes.
IMSA thing, just let me know. When is that?
September. Let me double check. September 6th. Or that's the deadline for the media application.
Okay, but when's the actual race or event?
September 20th.
Oh, it's on a Friday. Perfect. I'll still not be able to make that. I may be going to Ole Miss.
We go back in 15 seconds. Oh, it's a whole weekend event. It looks like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
Yeah. All right. In 3, 2, 1.
What would it take for USC to lose out? I mean, they've got to be one would think they're the front runner, but in this age of a commitment is not really a commitment. When I'm amazed that I'm committed someplace, but I'm taking 5 official visits after I've already committed. I'm like, okay, that makes no sense to me. But yeah. What does USC have to do, or is it just what you just said? It comes down to something else, relationship wise. And other than that, what is there that USC could do to lose this?
Yeah, I think part of it is a little bit of a concern that Lincoln Riley is not long for USC and might be sort of looking at NFL jobs. Now, I mean, if you're a conspiracy theorist when it comes to this, Matt Eberflus at the Chicago Bears is on the hot seat going into this year. If things don't go as well as planned, and, again, we're going deep into the weeds here, but, he has a rookie quarterback that played for Lincoln, and they put a ton of receiver help around Caleb Williams this year. If that does not go well, is Lincoln interested in the Chicago Bears job? Is he interested in living in this NIL world of constantly dealing with dollars and uncles looking for a handout and fathers coming in and having insane demands and all of those kinds of things? Or does he want to do X's and O's at the NFL? It has drawn, coaches in college basketball to the pros. It has certainly drawn Nick Saban out of this because he's just tired of having people come into his office asking what he's going to give them, all those kinds of things. Is there concern there from Juju Lewis and his family that, hey, I don't want to go all the way across the country if I'm not totally convinced that Lincoln Riley's there for the long haul? The same issue is at Colorado.
Yeah.
When Shador and Travis Hunter, who's basically a son to Dion, and Shiloh go to the NFL, are there questions about how long Dion has interest in now not only running a college program in Boulder, Colorado, but now having to rebuild one because basically his 3 best players just left, including his 2 sons and what I would call like a stepson because Travis Hunter is so close to him. So those are the issues. Now, even through Indiana's major struggles over the years, and I think 2 winning seasons since 1995, that is not making a 5-star quarterback die to go to Bloomington and play there. But there have only been 5 coaches during that time. It's not like they're turning coaches over every 3 years. Even Tom Allen with 1 winning season other than the COVID year, They had him there for many years. Curt Cignetti is not going anywhere very quickly unless he goes 11-1 and now is the hottest coach in America and everybody wants to hire him. So there's definitely coaching stability there. And so I think that's it. And I also think, to be totally blunt, I think there's a lot of NIL money being passed around right now. There are a lot of NIL demands when it comes to him. And so who wants to play that game? Who's willing to go through all of this to get him, or do schools move on to other targets, whether high school or portal?
In today's age of the transfer portal, and although in football it's different because players they can't enter the draft until 3 years?
Year 3, yeah.
So they don't have to stay at the same school, but they have to be someplace and be doing something. But is recruiting out of high school as important as it was, as opposed to being able to, I know you don't want a different quarterback every year, but if you can have a polished quarterback or more of a polished quarterback each year, that seems like it's very enticing to go that route.
Absolutely. And no, yeah, high school recruiting is not nearly as important as it once was. And almost by design, the portal allows that. If you're a hot seat coach, like if you're Sam Pittman at Arkansas, if you're Billy Napier at Florida, you don't have time anymore to do this. So it's really by year 3, if you're not turning things drastically, with, you know, and I don't necessarily feel bad for coaches in this situation. The money they're demanding and all of the, accessories that they're demanding, you better win. I mean, you're there to win. And so, but the portal has changed everything, and I'll read down how it's changed it. Julian Sayin, 5-star, signs with Alabama. Saban retires. He goes to Ohio State. He's probably the future quarterback at Ohio State. People say he's the best quarterback in the room right now. Cam Ward is on his 3rd school. He turned down the NFL to go to Miami. Now, why would you do that? Probably because an NIL package is so big that he could do it and then go into a draft class that is worse next year than the one he would have gone into this year. Dante Moore, a 5-star, transfers from UCLA to Oregon, of which he knew Dylan Gabriel was also transferring to. Oklahoma's starting quarterback last year, who was UCF's starting quarterback 2 years before that, to sit behind him because he knew he needed a year to sit there. Like Will Howard transfers from Kansas State, will be Ohio State's starting quarterback. Riley Leonard transfers from Duke, will be Notre Dame's starting quarterback. You go down the list. Aiden Childs follows Jonathan Smith to Michigan State, could be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year. Malik Murphy was going to sit behind Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning at Texas, goes to Duke and is going to be the starter. So what you no longer need to do is fly around the country to see 15 high school quarterbacks and sit in their high school coach's office and beg them to come. What you can do now is say, look, we want you. You're our number 1 target in high school. But if you don't want to come here, we will go recruit the transfer portal and do that. There have been high school coaches and players who have told me that their plan is to go to a school for 1 year, probably start, get film, and then they know they're going to the portal because that's where the real money is. It's like their second contract in the NFL. It's like their second school in college. So a lot of schools won't put big NIL deals together for a first-year quarterback. But if he plays 1 year, is hot, and now has marketability, he'll go to the portal and do that the following year. So absolutely, the transfer portal has totally changed the way college coaches recruit. There are definitely numbers that, no longer are a lot of guys trying to get to 25 high school guys and then add portal guys. They're trying to get to 15 to 20 and then load up on the portal, especially the guys who are on the hot seat or are feeling like, hey, this high school quarterback or this defensive end or this running back is not living up to the expectations that we had. I don't have time, or I'm not going to give him time to develop here. I just don't have that kind of time. So I'm going to go to the portal and get a guy who had 300 carries last year in the SEC.
Adam Gorney, the National Recruiting Director for Rivals and Yahoo. Last thing, I know this is not your focus point, Indiana, but what's if you had to predict a record, even though there's not been a snap and this is all the difference, what would you predict Indiana's record would be this season?
Yeah, I'll go through the schedule and do it real quick. I'd say they're 2-1, 3-1, 4-2, 4-3, 4-4, 5-5. I'll give them 7-5. I think it's going to start really well. I think they're going to have a lot of momentum going in to, let's say, late October. I think that Nebraska game, I think that real important stretch for this season is Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska. If they kind of, go 1-2 there, That's not a great look because the end of the schedule gets very tough. But 7-5 is a very good season. Probably the best, one of the best seasons in the last 20 years at Indiana. So I think, with the roster changes that they've put into place, with the players that they have, with the coaching staff that they have, let's get a winning season here. Let's get to a bowl game and build off that momentum in high school recruiting and the portal.
Yeah, I agree. 7-5 is actually what I have been. It's been my center point. Not that more wins is out of the question with, again, how this schedule is set up. Yep. I just don't want to sound like a complete lunatic because I'm talking about Indiana football, but there is a path to 6-0 for Indiana. That UCLA game is a linchpin game that it's winnable, especially knowing with all the things that are that UCLA went through. You mentioned Kelly did not leave them a ton. Plus the kind of deer in the headlights look that Deshaun Foster had at Big Ten Media Day made you wonder. I'm like, wow, that's he's never been a head coach or a coordinator. So there could be something to that. Maryland, no Tagovailoa anymore. It's a home game for Indiana, and then Northwestern. There's a possibility of 6-0 for Indiana, which is nuts. I get it, but the path is there, and then that's followed by 2 home games against an improved Nebraska team with Matt Rule, but a true freshman quarterback, and a completely unknown Washington team there. So a great start to that. And ironically, Indiana will be playing both teams that played for the national championship last year. So they got that going for them, which is nice.
Yeah. And but to Indiana's benefit, neither team will be nearly as good. So
absolutely.
Michigan was sort of this unstoppable force last year. Just out physicaled everybody at every level. Had a first round quarterback. And then Washington was just, Kalen DeBoer, one, is a massive winner, and 2, had a situation that was just absolutely phenomenal last year with Penix and Romadunzi and everything that he had on that team. So all of those players are gone, but still both very formidable teams, but certainly not the level of what we saw last year.
Nope. Another crazy quick stat. Alabama's head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and strength coach all on the Indiana staff together just a few years back. And LSU's defensive line coach, Kevin Peoples, as well on that staff. Crazy. Adam Gorney, appreciate you. Rivals and Yahoo's national recruiting analyst. Appreciate you so much. Make sure you're giving Adam a follow if you're not already. I'm sure that you are, and keeping up with all the content with Rivals.com and TheHoosier.com, a part of the Rivals Network. Adam, greatly appreciate Adam Gorney taking the time out to talk with us this week. We'll check back in after the season gets started, after we have a better idea of who's who and what's what within not only just the Big Ten, but Indiana and college football as a whole. And it's not far away. Week 0, a week from this Saturday, a week from tomorrow, rather. Only a handful, a smattering of games set up. None of them are really. I think there may be one decent game in that, but the following week, it's almost, that's just a prelude. It's not even an appetizer. It's the appetizer of the appetizers, because I think it starts on Thursday. I can't remember if there's a Wednesday game. I don't have it pulled up, but once it starts, it's Thursday, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I believe there's a Monday game as well. So college football will be coming back with a roar on the 31st, the last weekend of the month, as we head into September. Looking so much forward to it. I think there's going to be a buzz. It's just, football is just a fun sport. You get the tailgating. Everybody's out walking around, having a good time, especially when you have great weather. If we have the weather that we have been having, it could just be an absolute bonkers place. I mean, can you imagine if Indiana were to start winning? I mean, if you build it, they will come. And I believe that. So looking forward to it. I can't wait. I'm pretty jacked up for football season, but of course, always am looking forward to it. We'll look forward to having our good friends back on. Mitchell Page, talk some football. We'll be doing some things, I believe, with Upland this year. So we got that. Oh, and something I didn't mention, Jack Tuttle. Remember old Jack? One of the quarterbacks that Indiana couldn't protect, but played a couple of years here, was a big-time recruit. It never really materialized. He beat Wisconsin in the game, but then transferred to Michigan, was their backup last season to J.J. McCarthy, fighting for the starting role this year at Michigan. How ironic would that be for Indiana to play Michigan at home and the starting quarterback be Jack Tuttle? That would now he's not guaranteed that spot. He is in the running for the starting position, but he's just be ironic. So looking forward to that. And another special announcement. WCSI in Columbus. For those of you that are living around the Columbus, Indiana area, we will be providing some content for WCSI, the station there in Columbus. Looking forward to that, to adding WCSI to the ISB Media Network. Appreciate you guys, along with the rest of our stations around the state. We're always so happy to get to a new market. And if we're not on a station where you live, like Bloomington, where we do the show, or Indy, or any place, Kokomo, whatever, but especially like Bloomington, where we do the show, feel free to call the local talk station in your town and say, hey, there's a program I listen to every day that would really be good on here. Let them know. They don't know about us. Appreciate you. Nick, how's the first full week been for you?
It's been good. A lot of learning, some bumps here and there, some minor mistakes, some big ones, but it's all a learning experience, especially coming into this completely fresh. It's a lot to take in, but it's once I think I'm getting the reins of it. Just kind of what you mentioned to me early on is just repetition is going to be key. So I think just the more I do it, it's going to get easier and the better.
It's like anything in life, baby.
Exactly.
Anything in life. David says he can remember back in the Rose Bowl year, the stadium seemed to always be full. Well, probably that's the case, because back in the Rose Bowl year, they were Big Ten champions. So that makes a difference. And the stadium was smaller. They only had the two. No, this was the 10th Street Stadium. What am I thinking? Oh, wait a minute. When did Memorial Stadium come into play? That's a great question. Was Memorial Stadium when Memorial Stadium, I'll just look it up, but
yeah,
I don't know if Memorial Stadium, if IU was playing in that stadium yet. I know that 60s is when it happened, or when they started, when it was opened. But I'm gonna have to pull that up and get the old Wikipedia on that. Let's see. It opened in 1960. So yes, they were playing in Memorial Stadium. Still, it was smaller. You just had the two sides of stadiums. Neither end was closed in. No seating there. So slightly smaller. But yeah, it would make sense. They were Big Ten champions. So they were playing in the Rose Bowl against Orenthal James Simpson, former fugitive from the law. So stadium is 64 this year. So is the press box. Time for a new one. Yeah, it's time for the new one. Nick, Robert says you got over the hump. That's something that not everybody's been able to do.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
So it's been a fun week as always. Appreciate everybody on the program today. The Shot Father, Todd Leary, Zach Osterman, Travis Miller, and Adam Gorney from Rivals Motorsports.com. Big thanks to Nick, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, to each and every one of you. We're back on Monday to do it all again. And until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.